1941's The Wolfman, now an 84-year-old movie. And this month, it's getting yet another remake from Leigh Whannell, who just did The Invisible Man a few years ago. Personally, I loved that movie, so I'm actually really excited to see this new one. But I figured what better time than now to talk about The Wolfman from 1941 on VHS. Let's get into this thing. Welcome back to the Ectoviolence channel. My name is Alec. Today, we're talking The Wolfman from 1941 on VHS. This is a movie I haven't seen since I was a kid till I watched this again. Now, I can't recall if I watched it on like Turner Classic Movies or Sci-Fi or something weird in the middle of the night, but it had been so long since I actually watched this movie that I basically forgot the whole thing. You know what I mean? So let's go ahead and pop this tape in. The first thing on here, and one of my favorite commercials ever on a VHS tape, is for the Universal Monsters Classic Collection, now for the suggested retail price of $14.95. I actually have a few of these. You'll see here the Wolfman. Also in my collection, the Frankenstein and Dracula from the same set. Oh, and a sealed copy of The Raven.
Classic monster titles with a haunting new look and a price to die for.
Now, aside from this just being a great commercial, it does highlight something. This is the version of the movies that were coming out in 1991. It's titled The Universal Monsters Classic Collection, or Universal Monsters The Classic Collection. Later in 1999, however, they released them again on VHS and DVD, titled The Universal Studios Classic Monster Collection. And I do have the Wolfman DVD for that. It's actually a Blockbuster copy that was stickered in November of 2004, and for $14.99. Interesting. This is one of those glorious Blockbuster cases, you know, with the sort of frosty window here. And two of the tapes in my Universal Monsters collection do come from this collection. So I have the Mummy and Bride of Frankenstein, which is still sealed, so haven't opened that yet. After that, we get a black and white FBI warning and black and white MCA home logo. And the movie starts, and I do really gotta say, I enjoy the Universal logo there, just the classic style. It brings you back to an entirely different time, for sure. So Lon Chaney is our main character, Larry, who's come home to see his father because his brother died in a hunting accident. And let me just point out here, you know, watching some of these movies, like black and white movies, I know a lot of people, younger people especially, aren't into them. And maybe it takes them a while to get into it, because when I was younger, I had to be a great black and white movie for me to be mildly interested. But I'm at a point now where I can watch this and it doesn't feel any different from watching another movie to me. I mean, it definitely, you know, the movies are made differently and the way people talk and things like that. But so he ends up spying on this girl through his dad's telescope. She's played by Evelyn Ankers, and so it's a whole creepy relationship that started here because he spies on her through this telescope. And maybe this is my 2025 lens kicking in, but this guy is a creepy stalker. He then goes to where she works and makes all these comments about, like, what she has upstairs in her bedroom and shit. Mind you, this woman has a fiancé, too. And let's go back a minute. I do have to say, them playing romantic music over him spying on her is crazy, regardless of what time it is. Now, maybe this is intentional, so you don't feel bad that this guy is the guy that turns into a werewolf. I didn't. There's lots of fun werewolf talks. There's some interesting poems. Like, filmmaking is very interesting back then, especially horror movies and gothic-style movies like this. Then I mentioned that his father's played by Claude Rains, the Invisible Man. And then the fortune teller's introduced, played by Bela Lugosi, named Bella. But honestly, a lot of these people showed up in various different monster movies all the time, so it's no surprise, right? The girl sees a pentagram in her hand, which is a sign that she is going to be a victim of the werewolf. She ends up out in the woods being attacked by a wolf, where Larry intervenes and is bitten, kicking off the Wolfman. There's an interesting discussion had by the priest and the old woman who is, they refer to as a racial slur that we don't use anymore. So, you know, I'll just say traveling folk. But they're basically talking about he doesn't want them to have a pagan celebration. And she's like, listen, it ain't even up to me. It's going to happen, bro.
I couldn't break the custom, even if I wanted to.
They're shooting guns at the carnival, which is interesting to see. 1941 carnival, that stuff's always fun. Reminds me of the carnival scene in Back to the Future 3, which again, you know, that's like 1885, but still. He gets triggered by the little wolf that they're shooting at. He goes and speaks with this fortune teller woman, and she has the iconic line,
Whoever is bitten by a werewolf and lives becomes a werewolf himself.
she gives him a charm. Wear this charm. It's a pentagram. Pretty sick. I want one of those. Lots of pentagrams in this movie. Didn't remember that. Hell yeah. Werewolves are metal as fuck. Then you finally start to see some of these transformation scenes and the actual makeup. And man, this Wolfman makeup, honestly, it's still terrifying. Like watching this, I was like, ugh, this is creepy. I love it. I think a lot of people overlook these movies, and a lot more people should be looking back at them, especially now. Some of them are starting to be damn near 100 years old. They do get a lot of credit amongst, super horror nerds and stuff like that, or people who were just obsessed with the Universal monsters. But I hope some of these remakes that are coming out make people go back and revisit the originals. And this has a rather tragic ending, and it's pretty abrupt too. But that's just the way movies were at the time. There's not even a lot of credits. There's just credits for the actors. So let's talk about the positives of 1941's The Wolfman. The cast is legendary, obviously. Lon Chaney, Bela Lugosi, Claude Rains, Evelyn Ankers are the standouts, obviously. And some of those are obviously just because I'm more familiar with them, so when I see them on screen, I'm like, oh, hey. The imagery and the effects, awesome. It's truly horrifying and classic. Like, you look at it and you're like, this is what influenced everything to come. I see why. I get it, you know what I mean? I definitely think you gotta check out these movies to understand all that. And overall, it's just a classic. It's a great movie. And as far as negatives go for The Wolfman, there aren't gonna be many. If anything, maybe it's just that these movies are a little short. Maybe that they were limited because some of these effects were still processing and still developing and evolving. But I gotta say, I had no problem with any of the effects. Even the transitioning effects for the actual transformation of the werewolf. It's just fascinating to see. Like, it works, honestly. Before I rate this movie, I want to remind you to comment down below. Let me know what you think of The Wolfman, if you've seen this original movie or not. If you're excited for the remake. Also, let me know what you think of the 2009 remake, because I am going to be doing a video on that as well. I'm going to give the original Wolfman a 3.5 out of 5 hearts. I'm definitely more removed from this than, say, people who grew up obsessively watching these movies, or even people who grew up long before me who, these movies were more ingrained in their culture and stuff. But I love it, and I think I'll only love it more with future rewatches, because it had been so long since I actually watched this movie. Now, in recent years, I've watched Dracula and Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein and a few others, but I'm interested in diving back into some of these. Real quick, I did just launch a Patreon. There's a couple different tiers on there, everything from $1 to $6. You can check that out at patreon.com/ectoviolence. If you're looking for a way to support me, help support the channel, that is definitely the best way. You can do it right now. I'm going to start incorporating a thank you card at the end of every video. There'll be exclusive behind-the-scenes videos and photos. Every video that gets uploaded to YouTube will get uploaded to Patreon first as soon as it's done editing, and there'll be a monthly exclusive video on Patreon. So please go check that out at patreon.com/ectoviolence.